Welcome to the No More Meds podcast with Dr. Corinne Weaver. Are you stressed out because you keep getting sick and don't know what steps to take? Are you sick of not getting answers from your doctor and always needing to take drugs? How would your life be different if you were healthy? Be inspired and stay tuned for some practical solutions for healthy living.
Hello, and welcome to the No More Meds podcast, where we share stories to inspire you and your family to live a healthier life without more medications. Today, I have a special guest, and her name is Brittany Baker. And today, she's going to share her FOMO story. She was a former lawyer who turned herself into a full-time baker. She juggles being an entrepreneur and wearing all hats at FOMO while taking care of her toddler daughter, and she's due to have another daughter in December. She's equipped with a brand new and state-of-the-art allergen-free kitchen, and she's passionate about making an impact in the food industry by creating direct-to-customer fresh baked treats that no one has to have FOMO about. Welcome so much, Brittany. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, okay, you were a lawyer, and what type of lawyer were you first?
I was originally doing white-collar crime and internal investigation, and then I did pivot to work in-house for a food company, so it wasn't as crazy of a leap as it seems. I spent a few years in-house with the Hain Celestial Group, which is one of the largest natural and organic consumer product good companies in the country. Some of their brands you may be familiar with are like Terra Chips and Ella's Kitchen and Earth's Best. A lot of the brands that you would traditionally find at Whole Foods and now you can actually find at more conventional supermarkets. But I spent a few years in-house there, and it was so educational because I really learned the ins and outs of the food industry and the regulatory industry and, you know, how products have to be labeled and how products have to be tested. And it was kind of when I was there that I had always had this pipe dream of, you know, I love to bake. I was diagnosed with celiac disease during law school, so I was trying to experiment with baking gluten-free and dairy-free for a while. And it was always my pipe dream to kind of stop being a lawyer and open a bakery. But one I didn't take very seriously until I started spending my time at Hain. And I really was learning about it more from a business perspective of, you know, how do these companies actually function and what do they have to do and what are their safety standards and, you know, what actually goes into operating a business of this type. So it wasn't quite as crazy as it seems. And I ultimately left Hain. I was reverse commuting from New York City to Long Island, which, you know, after spending multiple hours in the car every day for a few years became a lot. And I was back at a law firm practicing general litigation when my daughter, who's now almost 3, was born. And when I was on maternity leave, and I started to really focus on, you know, what am I doing with my life? And I started to really think about leaving her in the morning early and coming home late at night and, you know, either having her in daycare or with a nanny full time to do something that I liked, but I wasn't passionate about. It just didn't feel right at the time. And so that was really the point in time where I decided that after all these years of dreaming of opening what I had originally envisioned as a gluten-free bakery, it seemed like the perfect time. And once I started to think about it more seriously, I began to realize that I was living in New York City at the time, and you can find almost anything there. There are plenty of amazing gluten-free dedicated bakeries, and there's vegan dedicated bakeries, and there are nut-free bakeries. But there's really not much that caters to multiple allergies or intolerances. And when you then left in New York City and you went to suburbs or you went to other cities, it was very, very apparent that there weren't many options of truly safe products. You know, a bakery that is a traditional bakery might have a gluten-free cookie or a vegan cookie. But if you're somebody that really has to eat this way because of a medical condition or an allergy, that has too many cross-contamination risks.
Right.
And so I kind of decided that I wanted FOMO to be inclusive to all of the major allergens and accessible to anybody, no matter where in the country they were. And that was kind of how the model was formed, that instead of being, you know, what I maybe envisioned originally as an adorable little sit-down bakery, it's really actually just completely direct to consumer. Pre-COVID, and we're actually reopening it in a few weeks. We do have a pickup window for people that live locally who don't want their order shipped. But otherwise, most of our orders, are baked fresh. They go out the door that day and they arrive 1 to 3 days later at our customers' homes.
And you said that you have a lot of allergens. So do you do specifically, okay, I want just gluten-free or I want dairy-free, or do you kind of include all the different allergens that you were talking
Every
about?
single product we make is completely free of gluten, dairy, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, soy, and sesame. And we actually have certifications from all of our ingredient suppliers that we purchase from, that all of our ingredients either come from dedicated lines or dedicated facilities that are free from gluten, dairy, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, and soy. They all have, for the most part, said there are also sesame-free lines and facilities as well. But because the FDA doesn't define sesame as a top 8 allergen, our suppliers tend to not be as forthcoming with that because they don't have to be. It's, part of why there's such a kind of motion going on in the allergen community to have sesame declared the 9th major allergen, because it's so hard to get information about allergens that are problematic for many people, but aren't labeled as a top 8.
Now, what's your specialty? What makes your food so good? If you're taking all the goodness out, right? Well, like most people are like, you're taking all the good food out. So what do you use? And
It's
how do
funny.
you make it good?
Everything we use are real ingredients. There is not one ingredient in our product that you probably either don't have in your home. It's not one of those products where you can't pronounce the names of chemicals. We don't use any artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, sugars. We use real brown sugar and white sugar. For our sugar cookies, when we use colorful sugar, or for our cookie cakes, when we have colorful icing, they're colored with colors that are based on fruits and vegetables, spirulina and turmeric. We don't use red dye number 6. Everything, it's a treat. It's a cookie. It's not supposed to be, a salad, but everything is a real ingredient. So it's supposed to be kind of what you would make at home for yourself without the headache of having to actually bake from scratch. And it's fun because my favorite thing that I love to hear from people is, a lot of times if somebody has an allergen or they have a child with an allergen, they'll serve it to a bunch of people and everyone will devour it. And then afterwards they'll tell them, guess what's missing from here? And people can't believe it because it really tastes so good that you have no idea. The people that don't have allergies or intolerances don't feel like they're missing out on eating something delicious. And for the people that have to eat this way for medical reasons, they get to be included and have something with everyone all together, which doesn't happen very often.
And that's awesome. I think it's a great opportunity for you, especially in this day and age of 2020. Like you said, you just kind of started, and this year's been a little challenging for everybody. But this is actually a good service because people, even if you don't have food allergies, you said you can enjoy it. But if like say you're a grandparent right now listening, and you have a grandchild that has, and how grandparents, they just like to spoil their grandkids with sugar or something, and then they don't know what to do and they don't know how to bake. So they could come to you and have a special delivery to their grandkid, and how wonderful that would be, how they could serve that instead of trying to figure it out themselves, especially if they've used gluten and dairy their whole life. It's really very difficult if you grew up using dairy and gluten, and it's hard to figure out those combinations. What has been your little trick of trade that you could share with somebody on how you make like a cookie stay together? That's one of the biggest things. It's like, gluten is glue, right?
Yep.
So it's like when you're trying to make the cookie, does it like crumble all to pieces, or do you feel like it stays together and you kind of come up with some things naturally to help it work together?
So it took over 1,000 test recipes, not exaggerating.
Right. I'm sure.
1,000 test recipes. But all of our cookie bites, we have 6 flavors of cookie bites and brownie bites. They're crispy on the outside, but moist and chewy on the inside, and they do not fall apart. And it took so much trial and error of just, tweaking one ingredient at a time to find that perfect combination, because that was one of my biggest things. Of all the ingredients that we weren't baking with, gluten is one of the hardest in terms of replicating the proper texture, as I'm sure you know. And there have been so many times where I have gone to a store and bought something that looked absolutely delicious. And then you bite into it and it kind of tastes like cardboard.
Right.
And that is, the biggest disappointment. And, I started ultimately at some point, I would love for FOMO Baking to have a whole line of different products. But I started with cookies and brownies, because that's what I miss the most. Crispy on the outside, chewy on the inside, moist chocolate chip cookie was like my personal, like, this is what I want all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of a natural starting place. And then that evolved into other flavors, since I know that, not everyone is always a fan of chocolate chip. My husband had really pushed for the oatmeal raisin. That's his go-to. I kind of wanted to hit all of the staples, all the classic flavors that somebody might want. But having that proper texture, as you mentioned, was the ultimate goal. And I wasn't ready to launch without it, because there's nothing more disappointing than, picking up a gluten-free cookie or taking a bite and having it crumble into 1,000 pieces.
And my kids could totally understand this, because they just started a little YouTube video. It's nothing big, but they just started it probably a couple months ago, and they wanted to make lemon bars. And I'm like, go right ahead. I wasn't going to help them. I was just going to let them just do their thing. And the video became really hilarious, because at the end it was like, they were like, oh, this is horrible, and I'm like, see, you think it's easy, right? And it's not. There's so many things that you need to do. And they were using a regular recipe and then just using like allergen free, substitutes of what I have, because I don't buy gluten. So they're using gluten free this and that and trying to make this recipe that was a regular recipe. And it turned out to be a disaster. But it was adorable watching them and seeing it. And so many people have the same problem, right? And so it's so nice to be able to reach out to you, and I'm going to do everything I can to let other people know, because this is a service that so many people need, not just adults, but kids as well, that really miss out, especially going to a birthday party. Like, you go to a birthday party as a kid and your parents tell you, if you have these allergies, you can't eat that. But then they could bring your special cookie or bring your special brownie, and then they feel like they're not missing out and feel like a weird kid. And so it's really neat to have those special.
It's even been fun. I mean, obviously people aren't having birthday parties right now necessarily to the same
Right.
extent, but back in like January and February, before, everything in the world became a little crazy, we actually started to get the word out locally, and we would have people come and buy either a cookie cake or a 50 pack to serve at their kids' birthday parties, even if their children didn't have allergies. And that way the kid or kids that had the allergies didn't have to bring a cupcake from home. They all sat and ate the same cookie cake or the same
That's
box
even
of cookies.
better. Yeah, that's great.
It was so nice hearing from parents that, my child wasn't left out for once. And I wasn't diagnosed with celiac until I was in my 20s. And even so, I still have moments when I'm at a party or I'm at a wedding and everyone's eating something that looks so delicious. And I'm like, this stinks. Like, I miss that. I know what that piece of pizza is supposed to taste like. And like, this is crummy. And that's kind of what I want to avoid for kids, because as hard as it is for me as an adult, I can only imagine how difficult it must be for a child who's experiencing this at every function, every school party. It's back when, this was still more of a thing, but, for Valentine's Day last year, we had done very cute red sugar cookie bites. And we had so many parents ordering them for school Valentine's Day parties. And it was so nice just hearing the feedback that, the whole class got to eat it together.
That is awesome.
And I like hearing that, because, FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out, is a little bit tongue in cheek, but it really gets to the heart of kind of what the mission is. Like, nobody should have to miss out on something delicious.
And now we know, when I was young and I was diagnosed I had anaphylactic allergies. And, when I was diagnosed with that, you just take a night, you have the EpiPen or you have to go to the hospital. They didn't really know allergies like they do today. And we're on a rise, as we know, more and more kids are being affected with this. So we need more and more people like you to be able to serve and offer this service. So I'm really happy that we connected today. And I know you have a special. So Halloween is around the corner. And, what are you doing? Any like pumpkin or little ghost or little cookies on your website?
So for Halloween, actually, just because things have been kind of crazy with getting up to speed post-COVID, we have all our traditional flavors and we have fun assorted packs. We have chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin, oatmeal chocolate chip, sugar, snickerdoodle, and brownie. And then for Thanksgiving, we're going to have really fun sugar cookies with Thanksgiving colors. And we'll also do specials for Christmas and Hanukkah with Christmas colors, which are really fun. If you go on our Instagram, you can see what we did last year. We're probably going to tweak them a little for this year, but they make such a nice little like thinking of you gift and for corporate gifts. Because everyone can enjoy them, which is nice. And for your listeners, I can actually do a no more meds 15 for 15% off all purchases.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Now, how can they find you on your website? And you said your Instagram. What's your Instagram page?
So our Instagram is FOMO Baking Co. And our website is FOMO Baking, FOMO baking.com. And everything you just order online, and we generally will place your order within 1 to 2 business days. Everything is baked fresh to order. So, sometimes it might take a day or two, just depending on volume of what we have to get out in a given day. But everything's baked fresh and then immediately sent via UPS. So depending on where you live, you'll get it 1 to 3 days later, and it will be fresh as can be.
Now, how long do we have to wait to have pies and cakes?
So it's funny. So right now, we do have an amazing cookie cake, which is so adorable, and they're probably my favorite product. In the summer with the heat, we were having some trouble shipping them just because when, they would sit in a warehouse overnight that was 100 degrees, they were melting, as would happen with chocolate chip products.
Right.
So I've been actually every week now that it's starting to cool down a little, I've started trying to retest shipments. So I'm really hoping that in the next few weeks, we can relaunch cookie cakes for shipment, which are so fun. We did some really fun Thanksgiving ones last year. And one of the nice things is you can do custom colors and custom messages. So you can literally send somebody a cookie cake for any occasion, any reason. And it's just such a sweet way to show somebody you're thinking of them.
Oh, yeah. I think that's great for Thanksgiving. Just a great little gift. I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you because it's been a hard year. So receiving a cookie cake or even, like you said, 50 cookies in the mail, however you want to do it, will definitely brighten.
Well, they are bite-sized. So it's not 50 giant cookies. It's actually a totally manageable amount.
Yeah. Over a couple of days, right? Over a couple of days. All right, Brittany.
People always ask about that shelf life, and they're good for 2 weeks at room temperature, but they never survive in my house that long.
Right.
I bring them home almost every single week, just because my toddler, especially, every time I leave in the morning for work, she says, "Can you bring me home something?" But they just don't last long because they're just, they're bite size and they're amazing.
And you're due in December, right? When is your next baby coming?
Yeah, mid-December.
Oh, okay. Very good. Well, I have the 13-year-old. She's December 10th. That's her birthday. And we'll have to
share birthdays. Very possible.
Yeah, may share some birthdays. And she loves her birthday. So we'll have to start planning for it now. And so her and her friends can enjoy the FOMO, the specials, and all that good stuff that you offer. And I appreciate it so much, Brittany, for being on our show today. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, thank you for having me. This was so fun.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the No More Meds podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share your favorite episodes with your family and friends, or at least leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. The content and opinions expressed are those of the host and presenters. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. Product statements have not been evaluated by the FDA.